Hannah Murray on TRE in the afternoon.
Joining us on the line now is Neal Toplis from Funeral Care Spain. How are you, Neal?
I'm all right. Apologies for not being with you again, but I'm on the road again. Sorry.
Busy. No, that's all right. Don't worry. It's a busy time of year for some reason.
Yeah. The funeral business is normally quiet this time of year, but there's rules and there's rules. And unfortunately, no one ever sticks to the rules in this game, do they? Let's be honest with you.
One of the things you wanted to talk about is Iberian going bust, which was quite a big thing, and some people lost their money and a bit of a mess.
Yeah, there's a lot to go through, really. A lot of people still don't know it's happened, which is why I wanted to talk about this today, because I'm still getting phone calls from people first thing in the morning because they've seen the YouTube stuff that we've done as a company. About the whole, I don't know what to do. It's a con, basically. It was a con to start with. So effectively, there was once a company called Iberian, and they were selling funeral plans more in Alicante and that kind of Valencia area than the Costa del Sol. But conservatively, I'll tell you that they sold about 6,000 plans in Spain.
Wow.
Of which I can only guesstimate from the investigations that I and some other parties have done, but there's probably about another 3,500 to 4,000 plans still live, so to speak, in terms of people that haven't used their funeral. Don't know how else to describe that without sounding a bit weird.
Yeah.
So really, the first thing for people to know is, despite what people are telling you on social media, and there's various parties saying, oh, you should appoint a lawyer and everything else, the bad news is that money's gone. And we'll go into how that's gone in a second. But the first thing for people to realise is that if you did have an Iberian plan, please do not for 1 second think you're going to get the money back. And it's a hard pill to swallow, but someone has to say it out loud, because there's a lot of lawyers and advice groups and all this kind of thing saying, oh yeah, well for X amount of money we'll get the money back. It won't happen. I'll happily give the keys of my car to a dog charity if I'm wrong.
Well, that's so awful, isn't it? I mean, it's easy to just say, but it's heartbreaking for people that have...
I know, and unfortunately, as I said, we've had a situation where people have frankly been conned, and now you've got the second wave of people going again and saying, well, for €1,000, I'll get your €3,000 back. No, they're just taking €1,000 off you. So that's a simple thing. So the reason I'm so secure in my words is for this reason: is that the gentleman who owned the company died in Portugal. So first of all, he wasn't even in Spain when he passed away. He wound the company up roughly a week before he passed away. So he was quite smart in what he did. There was no trust. Again, we'll go into that one in a minute. So the money was basically just in a bank account. Now, whether you choose to believe that money still exists or whether you choose to believe that he frittered it away, I'll go for option B. But the reality is that if you go to an FCA or a UK funeral plan company, shall we say, and I'll be careful with my words on that one, the money is put into a trust, and effectively a trust means that your money goes into a place where your name is written on it, for lack of a better way of describing it. So with Stephen Iberian, that didn't happen. The money was just thrown in a bank account, and there was no compensation attached to it, no insurance attached to it. He just went into a slush fund, and that was the biggest con, because people, including the sales staff, because I've spoken to a few, were under the impression that money was safe.
Oh, God, and even people who worked for him didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, I was in confidence. I've spoken to a few of the sales staff, and they were very much of the opinion that, hold on a minute, we were told this. And I've seen documentation from Steve to his staff saying, oh, no, don't worry, we've got this, we've done this, we've done that. And it was all complete and utter rubbish. So, for what it's worth, for those people that are listening and they're sitting down and having a cup of tea now because they've had all this bad news in one shot, please do not think that the sales team were complicit. I'm not defending anyone, but I'm telling you that I don't believe that anyone was complicit apart from those at the very top end.
Okay. And one thing on that, is there any advice that you can give people, questions to ask, any way of ensuring if they are putting their money into any kind of trust or funeral plan or things like that, anything that they can ask to ensure that it's legit?
Yeah, well, there's two things. Just to finish off the Iberian thing, if you did pay with a credit card, a full amount with a credit card, especially a UK card, you can claim on your credit card.
Okay.
And people have done that successfully. So if you did pay with your credit card, then you have got an avenue. You can go to your credit card supplier and go for it. And I know some people have got refunds that way.
Okay.
So otherwise, yeah, I'm afraid you've got to put a line underneath that one. So then we move into, unfortunately, I won't because we're on your radio station, but I can name at least half a dozen companies that are now doing exactly the same thing. And they're also saying that there's a trust involved. Now, I had a big learning curve when Iberian went bust. And I was fortunate enough, I'm friends with some of the senior people in some of the very big funeral plan companies in the UK, and they sat me down for hours on end and explained all this to me. So I'll condense it down effectively. It's all very well having a trust. However, the trust has to be, first of all, managed, and second of all, responsible to someone. So, for instance, if in the UK there's one main supplier in the UK, I don't think I'm going to step out of my remit for saying it's Golden Leaves now, because Avalon was bought by Golden Leaves a while ago. They are compliant. So, for instance, at any time, in fact, once a year, they have to prove that the money in the trust equals the amount of money paid in for the plan. So if everyone died at the same time, they have to have enough money in the account to prove it, to pay the debt.
Yeah.
And that's a rule applied by the FCA in the UK. So anyone that trades in the UK has to do that. And a couple of years ago, actually, a couple of funeral companies went bust because they couldn't prove that and they had their licenses taken away. Now, the problem is that there's all these companies springing up in Spain because they can, and they're not running under that regulation, which means they can say there's a trust. But the problem is with that, there could well be a trust, but there's no proof that the money that they're taking off Mr. and Mrs. Bloggs is €3,000. There's no proof that they put €3,000 in the trust. They could have put 50 quid in the trust. There's no management. There's no overseeing. There's no authority turning around and saying, okay, well, prove to me that you've got 5,000 plans and you've got enough money to satisfy those 5,000 plans. So that's the problem with the system. Spanish law, unfortunately, doesn't really recognise trusts as a financial thing, which makes it even more complicated. And that goes back years and years, hundreds of years of history. So it's very hard in terms of certainly the Iberian thing, and also currently for you to get your money back if you believe you paid it into a trust in Spain and it's not regulated elsewhere.
So, I mean, you'd think that a contract that states that all of your money is going into a trust, and if anything was to go wrong with the company, that you would get your money back. You would think that if all of that is written in a contract that the company should be providing, you would have thought that would be okay. Are they not providing that kind of contract?
Well, it's all very well. First of all, if the contract was not in Spanish, that would be a problem. Second of all, if the contract was taken out with a company that was not based in the UK, if it was based in Spain and saying a trust, then Spain doesn't recognise trust. So it's quite a big loophole, that one. It's quite hard to prove. If you went to mercantile court over that one, mercantile court is the kind of business court, is notoriously the longest court to wait for. So expect a 5-year wait to get anything through court. Now, with respect, most people who've got a funeral plan in their 70s aren't going to live that long. So what you've got is almost a perfect scam, which is that's the problem. If people want to take a funeral plan out, then that's fine. But please, please, please take it out with a responsible company and one that's regulated by exterior forces, not one that just says, "Oh yeah, we're cool."
So would you suggest a company that's been around a long time for a start?
Yeah, I mean, we can't escape things like the big banking companies over here, or the big insurance companies like Orgas or someone like that. Obviously, they're in Spain, they're big companies, they are reliable, they are regulated in Spain. But the minute you're going to go and start looking at an English-speaking or an English-run company that is offering to take your money off you, you really need to be careful where you put your money. And for that reason, the thing you should probably know also is that for any company to trade in funeral plans here and in the UK, so what they call dual certification, they must be regulated in the UK. So there's a couple of ways of telling whether your company you're going to is reliable. The first of all is, do you trade in the UK? If they say yes, then okay, then are you regulated by the FCA? Because they have to prove that to you.
So can they be, presumably they can be regulated in both countries?
They can. That's a complicated one because you're trying to regulate a trust and Spain doesn't recognise trusts.
Right.
Yeah, it's that complicated. The second thing to ask would be for a copy of the trust deed. So that would tell you who the trustees are, where the money is kept. If you go to a lot of these companies, they will actually publish it on the internet. They'll publish it on their webpage.
Right.
So a lot of them will actually say, we've got 145 million quid in this account and it's looked after by these people. Whereas if a company is not telling you those details, then you should be wary of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
As I said, if they're trading in the UK, then they have to be FCA registered. So they should prove that to you. And if they can't prove that to you on a bit of paper, then just don't give your money to them.
Mm. Yeah, at the end of the day, if they're legit, they shouldn't mind you asking all these types of questions.
And the whole point of the compliance aspect of this is that, you know, so if a big funeral plan company, who I've already mentioned that I won't advertise them for free, had financial problems, then that money is not only in a trust, but it's also under the FCS, which is a compensation system. So if you remember when Northern Rock went down as a bank, there was a lot of hoo-ha about that because people lost their money. So what happened after that is a compensation system was put in place where money up to a certain amount was insured by the state. So if a big plan company that was being regulated by the FCA in the UK was to go down, you would 99.9% get your money back. But it had to be regulated in the UK for you to claim in the UK on that scheme.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's a lot of information, and to do it in 15 minutes on the radio is almost impossible. What I'm trying to do is put the hairs on people's necks up enough for them to ask questions. If they get a rep trying to sell them something and they're not regulated accordingly, then please don't give them your money because they are just another Iberian waiting to happen.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Good advice. The other thing that we're going to talk about today is organ donation, how it works in Spain and how it doesn't work.
Exactly. So recently, I do quite a lot of things on TikTok and whatever it's going to be. And we did this on TikTok about 2 weeks ago, and it's surprising how many people don't realise the very basics of organ donation. A lot of people seem to believe that it's basically a cheap funeral. And it's not. It doesn't work like that. So there's various aspects of it. So first of all, organ donation and donating your body to science are two separate things. So donating your body to science would be you then being embalmed and then used as a teaching tool for students in Malaga University or whatever it's going to be. Okay, so that will be the only time that a body will be taken away and you wouldn't have to pay for a funeral for it. Okay? But that is extremely rare. And so why is it rare? So first of all, you have to be registered on the system. So I cannot register you on the system. You have to register yourself on the system. So this is not something you can do at time of loss. It's not something you can do when Aunt Bessie passes away. Aunt Bessie has to have registered previously on the system. So that's your first hoop to jump through. The second hoop is that because so many people think they've cottoned onto this life hack, so many people are registered that the authorities have literally a glut of people offering. So they very rarely need a person to study. So therefore, they expect the person that they accept to be absolutely perfect. So no scars, no wounds, no bed sores, no post-mortem, anything like that. So they're looking for perfect.
And that's probably
specimens.
Quite rare as well, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, listen, I'm not telling people not to donate their body to science. I'm not telling people not to be organ donors, but please do not think that you are not going to be in a position where you need a plan B, because you do.
Yeah.
The other weird and wonderful one, when we'll finish the donating the body to science bit, the other weird and wonderful one is that you also pretty much have to die within business hours, because the authority in Malaga, certainly, that does all this paperwork for these people, only works Monday through Friday, normal office hours. So if you die on a Friday night at 11 o'clock, you will not be accepted because there's no one there to accept you.
Right.
And after 3 days on Monday morning, you will not be in perfect condition. So they're just going to turn around and say no.
Yeah.
So that's the donating your body to science bit. So the other thing is organ donation, which, I highly recommend, but I have spoken to people that don't want it to happen. Whether it's personal or religious beliefs is up to them.
Yeah.
So people don't realise that someone has to be alive for them to have their organs harvested. So again, if you're in a situation where, God forbid, you get home and you find someone's passed away at home and they're on the floor, they will not be an organ donor because they are passed away.
Right.
Organ donors are people that have been kept alive. So, for instance, they've had a heart attack in a hotel, someone's done CPR, the ambulance has turned up, they've been kept alive, artificially kept alive till they got to hospital, then put on life support. That person could be an organ donor.
Okay, because they're going to control their death. Do you mean because they're going to potentially
because
turn
they're
machine?
alive. Effectively, once you stop working, you cannot be an organ donor. They have to take 90. There are some exceptions to the rule, as always, but 99%. So heart, lungs, that kind of thing. All of it has to be taken from a living body. So you will be clinically dead, as in you will be on life support, but the body would still be functioning. So
it's again, really interesting how a lot of people probably don't know that or don't think of that. I certainly haven't.
And as brutal as this conversation is that we're having today, I'm really hoping people kind of do wake up a little bit and realise that what it's all about, because people just don't ask these questions. And I know it's 4 o'clock on a 5 o'clock on a Thursday, but people need to know this stuff. Wednesday. People need to know this stuff to know the position they can be put into.
Definitely. I remember in the UK, it was really, really easy to pick up a donor card. I had one in my wallet, and you just filled out your name and address and phone number, and it seemed really simple. When I die, they can have my organs, and I'm sure there was like a phrase that was used like that. When I die, people can have my organs, but you're saying that's not the case. No,
and when you think about it in the cold light of day, it makes perfect sense. You just have to look at it in that way. There are some different things, some parts of the eyes, for instance. There are some issues with bone and stuff like that can be used. But generally, the person needs to be alive. And also, when the people say organ donation, and this is hugely important to me as a funeral director, if you ever end up in a situation where you're going to donate a loved one's organs and they're in the hospital, they're on life support, they're going to do what they call harvesting, there is a decision you need to make. And this. What people don't realise is a huge part of organ donation is skin. Now, that can make a big difference to a family if they want to see their loved one afterwards, in terms of after the donation and before the funeral. So it's one of those things that the transplant department in Malaga are fantastic. They are wonderful, wonderful people. How they do their jobs, I do not know. However, you should always be aware that if you turn around and say to someone, we're going to do organ donation, fantastic. But if someone's travelling to see that person again before you do the cremation or the burial, you need to tell them. Because otherwise they may harvest things and it may affect the appearance of their loved one. And that's hugely important. Sometimes they don't take any skin, but I would say 80% of the donation situations that I'm in, they do. And sometimes it's quite a lot. It just depends, obviously the fire victims or whatever it's going to be, or surgery victims or wounds or MRI, the various infections you can get that they need skin for. But if that person's compatible, they will harvest what they can. They will take what they can.
Yeah.
So it does make a big difference to a grieving family if they want to see their loved one and they're travelling to do that. If you do organ donation, please make it very, very clear to the people that are doing the harvesting that you want to see that person again.
Yeah.
And they will leave their face alone, or they will leave their hands alone, or whatever it's going to be, so you can say goodbye correctly.
It's a really interesting one that I bet a lot of people hadn't thought about. And also the fact that because of the way some people will die and the way that other people will die, a lot of people won't have the opportunity to donate their organs because, as you say, if sometimes it can be a sudden death or a tragic accident or things like that, in which case the opportunity isn't there. That there's a lot of people who die that aren't on life support, that aren't in that situation. So the opportunity, the idea of doing that would seem, well, strange to say the least.
Spain is more of a default situation now. So because the possibility for organ donation is very, very low in general, if you're in a situation where that person's in hospital and they've declared, clinically dead, the organ donation team will just ask you.
Right.
Because they have to. They're not walking around with cloaks and big sides and looking for people to pass away. They just, they have to do that job because it could help someone in the future. You could easily save 5 or 6 people from one human being passing away.
Wow.
And that also is a possibility of helping with the grief process, because if someone dies young, but they manage to help half a dozen people in their lives, and so they're living on through someone else, that actually can help the grieving process.
Yeah,
it's
that's
still a
really
horrific
special
thing to go through.
Yeah.
But, you can go on YouTube and see plenty of examples where, the recipient has gone to the wedding of the children or whatever because they've got dad's heart.
Yeah, it's really lovely.
So, there's a very big emotional aspect to it. And today is very kind of clinical and very black and white, but there's a lot involved in the process.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do is open the first page of the book for people to have a think about it and know that these things have to be kind of not necessarily addressed, but certainly known about for future reference.
It's not as simple as people may think, basically.
No. And it's certainly, going back to the original thing, it's not a cheap funeral plan. It's not I'm not a big fan of funeral plans anyway. I never have been. But it's not a way of saving you money. It's not a life hack. You should always have a plan B. It's possible, but 99.9% will end up using a funeral director.
Yeah. Okay.
Because.
Well, if people want to get in touch with you and about anything we've talked about today, just for some general information or advice, to ask you some questions on anything to do with funerals, how do they do that?
You can use my personal mobile. You can send me WhatsApps on that. If I don't answer, it's purely because I'm with someone. So that number is 660-659-857.
Perfect. 660-659-857 to get in touch with Neal from Funeral Care Spain.
In terms of day-to-day, you can go on the website, which is funeralspain.com, or you can just call the office number, which is available everywhere. Just Google Funeral Care Spain.
Perfect. Funeralspain.com is the website. Neal Toplis, thank you very much for being with us, as always, and lots of great information there. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank
Bye-bye.
You. Bye-bye.